Hello everybody, my name is Seven Sins and this is my first build guide video for Diablo 4. Today I'll be talking about my Sorceress, whom I leveled all the way to 100 with in Hardcore, with a very special Blizzard/Ice Spikes build. To immediately get more in depth about what this build is capable of, it has, in my opinion, the strongest crowd control available in the game through the use of Freeze, and not to mention Chill. Chill actually, as it builds up, freezes enemies. This gives you great survivability and a very large amount of crowd control. Other than that, this build is extremely mobile. There is basically at no point is there ever a need for you to stand still or have to tank hits, abilities whatsoever. In fact, the build is so mobile that I never died. Honestly, the most amazing part of this build is how it can basically handle everything that the game throws at you on your own, bosses included. But more about that later. Initially, let's get started by actually looking at the build. This build is what I'm currently at level 100. This will also be the build that you will eventually go into as you acquire all your uniques that create an even better synergy with the Blizzard Ice Spikes build. The initial points for the core skill, the basic skills, don't really matter. At this point, at the end game point, you will have infinite mana, so those points can go wherever you want. If you need a filler spell, however, it is my recommendation that you either take Firebolt with the mana or Frostbolt with the mana. Going down to the core skills, here obviously you grab Ice Shards. Ice Shards with our enchant fire off automatically when Blizzard freezes an enemy. Get the enhanced Ice Shards for the Ice Shards not only to fire off, but also to ricochet onto different enemies. Then we go down here, we have Teleport. I expect into Shimmering Teleport for the 30% damage reduction. As much as you'll be spamming Teleport later on, especially with the Raiment of the Infinite, this is a no-brainer. For Flame Shield, it's all the same. Obviously, in Hardcore especially, this is your bread and butter. We slap this on as our enchant. The higher levels, actually, the enchant benefits from as well. Not to mention the Shimmering Flame Shield, which will heal you for 50% of your maximum HP. Ice Shield or Ice Armor, obviously, I grabbed this because this is one of the easiest barrier generators. You can couple it with a 25% mana increase if you so desire. At this point, especially in the endgame point, I take it away and push it in Frost Nova because I don't really need it anymore. Frost Nova is something that you can consider putting all your points into. This is the biggest cooldown reducer per skill point invested. Together with Mystical Frost Nova, this is your vulnerable applicator. If you do go all the way in, like I did, I got my cooldown down to 10 seconds. Using this on a boss basically gets you an 80% uptime on your vulnerable, which is pretty good because Frost doesn't have, for our like auto cast methods with Blizzard and Ice Shards, a good way to apply vulnerable otherwise, because a boss does not get frozen, so our Ice Shards do not automatically fire. However, more on bosses later, you'll still be fine there. For the Conjuration tier, I recommend grabbing Lucky Hit, even if you're not running Avalanche later. Precision Magic and increasing your Lucky Hit will definitely benefit the extra skills we'll be running on our equipment. It is also, honestly, kind of advised to dive into Align the Elements and Protection if you are missing your Raiment of the Infinite and your Temerity. Temerity primarily. If you do not have Temerity, Protection will kind of give you that second layer of always having a barrier. More on that later as well. But keep in mind the protection node if you need that barrier to trigger your lucky hits. And most importantly, this node right here, Cold Front. It's a passive node. I know I'm skipping Blizzard, but I have to point this out immediately. This is kind of what makes or breaks a crowd control build. I have noticed an immense increase in how fast enemies slow down and freeze. Ergo, firing off more Ice Shards, as well as Blizzard obviously being the better crowd control spell here. It, however, requires you to have a barrier up. If you do not have a barrier up and your Blizzard is cast, it will not apply the additional chill. The chill is multiplicative. It is not additive. So this means that your 18% chill does not turn into 42%. In fact, or rather, it takes your total chill and then multiplies that by 0.24. It's still extremely powerful. There's a reason why there's only, quote-unquote, only 24% multiplicative available here. Icy Veil is only to unlock Cold Front. You could put more points in this, but I didn't really see it necessary. Now, our bread and butter, Blizzard. There's a lot to say about this skill, but the major thing to mention is obviously you want Mage's Blizzard, so that you can keep it going for 12 seconds rather than the 8 that it comes with in the init cast. But Blizzard itself scales pretty well. You'll actually notice that I do not have increased skill points to Blizzard. There's a reason for this. In hardcore, especially when you have to check your survivability and have to be as tanky as possible and be able to take extra hits, your pants are that which increase Blizzard's levels as well as your necklace. My pants have temerity. Temerity is use a potion or find a heal or get healed in any other way above your maximum or current HP. Above your maximum current HP, everything above that will generate a barrier, which literally means I can go outside right now, hit a potion, and I will generate a barrier. Which is why at that point, protection is no longer important to me, as actually ice armor and such are falling off as well, but I still keep them around because ice armor is rather like one of our most fantastic skills to literally pretty much double our HP. Blizzard itself, however, try and get it as high a level as you can, but don't break anything trying to. At the end of the day, the damage from Blizzard is significant, and it will definitely do a lot of damage, but is not the end-all answer that we're looking for here, because Blizzard cannot critically hit. Ice Spikes, on the other hand, can. Or ice spikes that are summoned by Blizzard can critically hit. More on that later as well. You'll notice, actually, immediately, more on that right now, because you'll notice that I actually took Inner Flames. Inner Flames does nothing to me as a cold mage, as a Blizzard mage, but Devouring Blaze, on the other hand, creates a 30% increased critical strike damage against burning enemies, multiplicative. So the reason I take Firewall, and I only take level 1, is to be able to apply the Devouring Blaze. It is none more, in the end game, to use my teleport in combination with Riemann of the Infinite, which drags enemies all together. I drop a Firewall if they're tanky enemies, otherwise I don't even bother. I usually precast 3 or 2 Blizzards if it's tanky enemies, and then teleport in, drop a Firewall, and then watch my Ice Spikes go to town, because my Ice Spikes benefit off of this passive. It is one of the weirder passives to grab as a Blizzard Ice Spikes mage, obviously, but this 30% increased critical strike works for all your spells as long as the enemy is burning. Do you have a party member that inflicts burning? You don't even need to grab your Firewall, you can just grab this and enjoy your extra damage. In fact, if an enemy is immobilized, the 30% goes up to 75% multiplicative. This is actually something I exploit too, as I'll point out later in my gear. Going down to the ultimate skills, I do not pick up Deep Freeze. I don't see the point of it. It's a very long cooldown spell. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, actually. It's kind of weird how multiple stacking Blizzards, I guess it's not that weird when I say it out loud, Blizzard stacks multiple times. From Deep Freeze, you only set, if you're using the Ice Spikes enchant for Deep Freeze, which we use for a 50% area explosion, Deep Freeze actually does not summon that many Ice Spikes. So we omit that, and I go straight into Permafrost, because when you're dealing damage and you need to deal more of it, it is always against elite enemies. 3 Permafrost without even thinking, put them in there, and then Hoarfrost. Hoarfrost is straight up our strongest passives. Any cold mage will grab this, and if you can get 3 extra points through the use of a necklace upgraded to level 5, I believe the necklace has to be eye level 700 plus. Don't pin me down on that, it could be 600 and something, but if you get it to level 5 and you have +2 on there, it will give you another 3 Hoarfrost, which means I do 18% multiplicative more damage to chilled enemies, and 36% multiplicative to frozen enemies. It's an insane damage boost. Here we go to the key passives. Again, note this is endgame. This is your quote-unquote final build. You're no longer expected to Avalanche at this point. I haven't even really delved into how Avalanche works yet, but this will be your bread and butter until you become completely mana independent. Right now, however, once you become mana independent, you go for Veer's Mastery. Veer's Mastery is very simple. Enemies that are close to you deal 20% less damage. Simple as. If you critically strike, you gain 45% reduced damage taken. Again, a boon in hardcore. Alright, let's go over our equipment and our stat priorities. In general, especially when using one-handers, I would recommend you get damage to close enemies, and if you can find a role with chilled enemies or crowd control enemies, all the better. You will want to stack critical strike, lucky hit as well, but lucky hit, I'd say, is not as important. Critical strike, however, is important because of the synergy that it has with ice spikes. You're going to be hitting so many ice spikes, a lot of them you will want to have crit, which is also why critical damage is not a complete waste. If you find a weapon that has critical strike damage on it, you want to value it a little bit lower as anything with chilled or crowd controlled, but it is still decent enough for you. For the necklace part, I hope you can just get as lucky as me. I got this necklace around level 77. This is the luckiest thing I found in the entire game. You can see the rolls on it are extremely high. It gives me +3 to my teleport, my Frost Nova, and all the other shield abilities as well. The mana cost reduction is something that I always try to get on the necklace because of the insanely high possible roll on it. A cooldown reduction is the second best roll, as again, you want to lower the cooldown on your teleport, your Frost Nova, before anything else. For your other jewelry, it's basically standard stats, critical strike, lucky hit. It's dealer's choice, really. I do, however, recommend that you, especially in hardcore, you have a couple of pieces with maximum health on it. At around level 70, 80, it matters more than level 90. Your base levels will catch up and give you more maximum life than a level 70 or 80 ring will give you. But regardless, try and have that in, because especially early on in the game and after upgrading your gear with max life on it, you will find that you just get a lot more survivability. The lucky hit chance while you have a barrier, there is an extremely high roll for this on your helmet. Try and get it, but, you know, don't break the bank trying to. Honestly, that kind of covers it for stats. If you eventually delve into the world of the uniques, you're going to end up with Raiment of the Infinite. You're going to end up with Temerity. These have predetermined stats for your survivability and obviously your crowd control and your DPS. For the boots, Esu's Heirlooms, I love these boots because they give my ice spikes an additional critical strike chance, especially when I evade. For the aspects, and this is the most important part really, this is the aspect that makes everything possible, the Blizzard aspect. Get this if you have it. Slap it on. It will literally start the wonderful journey of ice spikes. And on the second place will actually be Ice Shard Piercing, because your synergy with Blizzard and the Ice Shard enchant is paramount to this build. On the third place, there's the Avalanche Key passive. Eventually it falls off and you don't need it anymore, but the sooner you can get this, the more of a mileage you're going to get out of it. Deep Freeze gives your ice spikes a 50% increased radius, which means they'll hit a lot more on the screen. 24% more damage multiplicative while you have a barrier active. We're going to have a barrier active all day long. Our most important aspect goes on our necklace, because this one triple dips against staggered bosses. It'll deal 53% multiplicative damage against a staggered boss 3 times for immobilized, stun, and frozen, because bosses, when staggered, are considered all 3. Other useful aspects, honestly, the armor aspect is probably the best one for our defenses right now. If you can get this one with a 50% roll, and then also add armor to your jewelry, you will, I believe I'm capping around 68% damage reduction. The power, the ever-living defensive aspect is also very good. And then, of course, we have the utility aspect of Fortune, which gives you 17% lucky hit chance while you have a barrier active. If you do not have Raiment of the Infinite, slap it on your chest. Now, there's something I want to note, and that is primarily this here little item. It's the Fists of Faith. It has been absolutely crazy. Stacking lucky hit with this thing, which has 4 lucky hit integers. It has the heal, restore mana, immobilize, and daze. Daze is something that we don't normally have access to. Immobilize only comes coupled with fire. I have about 60% lucky hit right now with my barrier active, obviously, but this procs every single thing constantly. All right, let's go over our skill assignments really quick. As I mentioned before, Firewall is only to inflict burning on enemies to get that extra critical damage. This has no other purpose other than making our ice spikes hit harder. Flame Shield makes us immune. Immune does not make you unstoppable. Immune will clear everything on you. However, poison will not get purged. It will still tick after your barrier runs out, so make sure you don't forget that. However, it is a wonderful ability, and the more cooldown you have, the more you can use it. I use it to freely travel from pack to pack if I notice there's some crowd control against me or whatever. It's a very versatile ability, and I would honestly still use it in softcore. Teleport, there's not much to say about this, especially when you have Raiment of the Infinite. It pulls enemies together if you teleport into enemies and then stuns them and just sets them up to be blizzarded. Like this pack here, teleport into it, fire, blizzard, blizzard. This is pure overkill, obviously, in this scenario, but there you go. Frost Nova. Frost Nova is a little bit special. Most of the time, I want to save my Frost Nova to only use it when I don't have teleport, or when I have teleport on cooldown and I can't see myself precasting blizzards. However, in reality, it's just better to use it when it comes off of cooldown, because it is pretty much a one-shot thanks to our ice shards. Like, if you just Frost Nova this, it will pretty much die. There's not much else you have to do. However, precasting and then just going in there with the teleport still has my preference. So I try to save Frost Nova a little bit. Ice Barrier, use at your own discretion. And Blizzard, I mean, this is what the build's all about, right? Enchantments. On hardcore, we always go with Flame Shield. There is no other option. Why not? Once every 2 minutes, you get to escape death. I mean, what am I even trying to prove here? Ice Shards is the other important enchantment because you want these to fire passively as you freeze enemies through Blizzard. Honestly, you could do without Ice Shards eventually because Ice Spikes become so crazy in damage. However, Ice Shards with the enchantment that makes Ice Shards pierce can still clean up a big group of enemies, especially if you pull them together, and then Frost Nova, which is another combo that you could end up using. If you run into a pack of big elites, what you could do is this, bam, dead. Like, it's even faster, obviously, when you have the, when you have everything actually centered around you. They will just immediately die. And that is it for the first part of the Blizzard Ice Spikes guide. I'm cutting this guide up into 2 parts because the Paragon part is really lengthy. We have to go into detail, and it's probably going to be a good 15 minutes on its own. I hope you're going to be successful as a Blizzard Sorcerer. And thank you very much for watching my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check me out on Twitch now and again. See you in the next part.